Welcome everyone to Deep Waters, where we take a deep plunge into the world of the sweet science. I'm George DiMattelis alongside the champs in studio, Paulie Malignaggi and Chris Algeri. Fellas, this pay-per-view on March 30th, put on by PBC, is going to be fantastic. And the stakes have been just jacked up a little bit higher because of the infusion of one Terence Crawford and who he might face when it comes to the WBO title. All right, but let's talk first about the matchup between Fundora and Tszyu. We know that Keith Thurman was out because of the bicep injury, and so Fundora steps up into that fight now for the WBO and WBC title at 154. What do you make of, Paulie, I'll start with you. What do you make of this news first of the step up there from Fundora to Tszyu and how that fight might play out?
Well, I think it's infused a bit of a different feel here to the fight, right? I mean, Keith Thurman wasn't sanctioned for the WBO title that Tszyu has, right? Now, all of a sudden, WBO title seems to be on the line. Tszyu now has to defend it against a guy like Fundora. But Fundora was fighting for the vacant WBC title against Boachuk. Now, Boachuk is out of a WBC title shot, even though he has to face Brian Mendoza as the replacement for Fundora. But now the WBC has entered into the fray for the main event instead. It's Tszyu against Fundora, not just for the Tszyu's WBO title, but also for the vacant WBC title as well. So we're already starting to get some unifications going into the mix here. And of course, we already discussed yesterday how stylistically this fight plays out, I think in a fan-friendly style.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of dominoes are falling into place that, Chris, is going to benefit us as fight fans because these are some great matchups we have on March 30th in that pay-per-view by PBC.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. To your point, we keep getting these new breaking news. They're all positives for this fight. I mean, listen, we had Keith Thurman in the fight. Granted, he hasn't been in the ring in a long time. Granted, he's Keith Thurman. Again, like you mentioned, champ, he wasn't sanctioned for the title fight against Tszyu to defend his WBO title. But guess what? Now that he's out, Fundora's in. He's a viable contender for that title. He was going to fight for the title anyway, exactly like you said. So now not only do we have a better fight with a guy who's actually in the weight class and is a top contender, but we have 2 title fights on the line. So we went from 0 title fight to 2 titles on the line in the main event. I mean, the card just keeps getting better. I mean, listen, I'm here for it.
I mean, think about it. This card has now Tszyu versus Fundora, fun fight.
Yeah.
You got Rolly versus Pitbull.
Which is always a fun fight.
Fun fight.
Always a fun fight.
And Boachuk, Brian Mendoza, right?
And we also have
on that card as well.
We also have Lara and Zarafa, and I believe all 4 of them are title fights.
You know what? Not bad, man. Not bad. I mean,
this card turned out to be pretty
pretty
damn good.
As we get closer, I think you always listen. Even when think about it like this, right? Boxing fans, we're always suckers in some way because even if we have a fight we're complaining about, when it gets closer, we're always excited about it no matter what. But this card's actually giving us a little bit more reason to get more excited about it. It's getting a little bit better as it gets closer. So I think there's a lot of reason to be anxious to watch these fights.
Rarely do fights within 10 days get better. This card actually is.
And for those Amazon Prime subscribers out there, the first 2 fights will be free to Amazon Prime subscribers, and then the pay-per-view, those 4 title fights will be on pay-per-view March 30th. Definitely don't want to miss it. All right. You know what made this card even more interesting? The injection of Terence Crawford. We know he's undisputed at 147, but now reports are saying that he is exercising his option to take on the winner of Tszyu and Mendoza for the WBO belt. Paulie, that just makes this fight and this whole card just even more intriguing, even because now Crawford has to move up in weight class as well.
You like it. You like how George did that, right? You guys thought Crawford was going to be on the card, right? He had me going too. I know. No. The injection, meaning he's putting his name forward as far as he's now
throwing his hat into the mix.
He's enforcing his WBO mandatory because as WBO welterweight champion, he can go up in weight and automatically become the mandatory for the WBO title. And that's apparently what Terence Crawford is doing. He's enforcing his mandatory status at the 154-pound division by the WBO, which means the winner of Tszyu Fundora, if Terence Crawford wants to enact this, which I assume the reason he's putting his name into the mix as far as enforcing that mandatory shot, he may want the winner. Now you get things really, really interesting in this weight class because, like I said, you already got a fun fight on the undercard, which is Mendoza-Boachuk, which also is for the WBC mandatory position. So the winner of the main event becomes WBO and WBC champion. Mendoza-Boachuk is for the WBC mandatory position. And now Terence Crawford is the WBO mandatory position. You're starting to really put some pieces into effect here in the 154-pound division, which could make things exciting.
Hard place was Tszyu, and the fact that it was a very tough fight, younger guy. Man, he got 1 title on the line. He's got to go up in weight class. The hard place was he didn't have a dance partner.
Yeah.
There was no big fights for him. We're all talking about who's going to fight next. Guys like me were like, hey, fight Tszyu. I think that's a great fight. You get another title. You know, that's your 4th weight class getting world titles. But it's a very tough fight. Now, Tszyu is going to have 2 belts if he wins, or he's going to have Fundora to fight, who's got 2 belts. So now Terence now has the ability to go to 54, pick up 2 titles at the same time. This fight now makes a lot more sense now for Bud Crawford. Man, the way he's been moving recently has been very, very calculated, very, very smart. He does a lot of baiting and switching lately. He's been doing that before. You know, he said, you know, they were talking about the fight up at 160 with Chris Eubank Jr. That got people intrigued. You're going to jump up 2 weight classes, fight a middleweight, a former super middleweight. Maybe throw your hat into the mix with Canelo down the line. But now this comes up. Terence is smart, man. He's able to throw in that WBO mandatory challenger position because, you know, as you said, former champion. I mean, there's a lot of options now for Bud. He went 2 days ago. He had no options. Today, he's got all the options in the world, and all of them look really good in my eyes. Yeah,
and it's going to be a big money fight either way. All right, let's. I know we're going to delve into this further in deep waters, but let's get a little bit of a preview, if you will. If Crawford fights Tszyu, who wins that fight, Paul?
It's a tough fight, man.
Yeah.
Crawford is not getting any younger. Tszyu is getting better and better every fight. It's not an easy fight, especially when you consider Crawford's age. It's a fight you want to see. It's an intriguing fight because Crawford, even, you know, he wasn't a spring chicken for the Spence fight, and he absolutely dominated it to the surprise of many, including myself. So you can never really count out Terence Crawford because he's so skilled and he's such a cerebral fighter. But physically, what kind of level is he at? Because at this age, every 6 months you're aging a lot more than you are at 25 years old for 6 months. You know what I mean? So I don't, you know, you're always going to wonder at what point you get inside the ring and you're old all of a sudden. At this age, this is when it happens. It happens like this, all of a sudden, out of nowhere. One night you get into the ring and you're old. And Tszyu is not
Or you don't make it to the ring. Look at Keith Thurman. He's 35. Or you don't make it to the ring.
And Tszyu is a guy who, for me, is getting better and better and better. He's strong, has a cerebral mind, comes from a boxing background, family-wise. Obviously, his father was an excellent world champion, but also he's trained by his family as well, his grandfather and his uncle. You know, and he has that Eastern European background in terms of his training. I think he's getting better and better. He's stronger. He's a marketable fighter due to the Tszyu last name, and his father was an excellent champion. Not an easy fight, but I tell you what, Crawford is smart putting his name into the mix because I think he sees the star of Tszyu is ascending, so all of a sudden he realizes this could be a big fight if Tszyu beats Fundora. Again, that's you got to get through that first.
So Chris, very quickly, who wins between Crawford and Fundora if Fundora wins?
Honestly, I think this fight's going to be very telling because, look, Crawford is such a difficult guy. He's like water in there. The way that he can fight, switching sides, his ability to fight one way and perform other ways, I mean, everything. So Fundora's another difficult guy to deal with. So the fact that that Tszyu took this fight on short notice, didn't blink about it, I think that says a lot about his character. If he can go in there and handle a guy like Fundora, who is such an awkward style that he's had to develop in the last 10 days, I think that says a lot to how fluid Tszyu can be in terms of him as an opponent. So what he does in this fight, I think, is going to tell me a lot going into the Crawford fight.
Man, that March 30th pay-per-view put together by PBC is going to be fantastic.
Wednesday Night Fights. On the next Wednesday Night Fights, March 27th, join us for the main event. Puerto Rico's Joseph Blessed Hands Adorno takes on Nicholas the Axeman Walters from Jamaica. Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at proboxtv.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
Ooh, March 27th, Wednesday Night Fights. We were just talking, Paulie and Chris, man, what a great fight week that's going to be. You have the 27th with Wednesday Night Fights, and then the 30th, that pay-per-view with Tszyu and Fundora, and the co-main event for the WBA super lightweight title. Two very exciting fighters. You talk about Rolly Romero and Isaac, I have to say it like that. I'm from Miami, I say it in Spanish, Isaac. But Isaac Cruz at Pitbull versus Rolly. Well, what do you like about this fight, Paulie, that makes it so interesting?
Well, first of all, it's a world title fight, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Rolando Romero, the WBA super lightweight champion of the world. Stylistically, it's also a fun fight. You know, with Romero, you never know what you're going to get. I feel like sometimes he's underrated, sometimes he's overrated, sometimes you just don't know what you're going to get with Romero. You know, he's a big personality. Call him Pitbull the Chihuahua, even though Pitbull's nickname is Pitbull. You know, Cruz has a nickname of Pitbull, but he calls him the Chihuahua. And you know what, Cruz? Credit to Cruz, he's not biting back. He's not falling for the trash talk. He's not trying to bite back at him. He's trying to take it respectfully. One thing about Pitbull Cruz, you always know what you're going to get with him when he gets in the ring. He's very consistent, very composed in there, cutting off the ring, pressing you. So let's see how Rolando Romero handles that. Romero himself has a bit of an awkward style and can punch a little bit. So I think this fight, it could be fun. Listen, one thing you got to keep in mind, though, Romero's a bigger guy here. I think Cruz was at 130 pounds at one time, then 135. So keep in mind here, as dangerous as Cruz is, he's still a small guy. Romero is going to be a lot bigger than him inside the ring.
Yeah, Chris, what do you make of this matchup between Rolly and Pitbull? I'm not going to disrespect him by calling him Chihuahua, but he is a Pitbull. He's a Cruz.
Nah, this fight has show stealer written all over it. I mean, you mentioned that the styles and how they match up. Both guys are entertaining on their own, and I think the way that they match up together is fantastic. Isaac Cruz is usually in very exciting fights. He didn't have a willing dance partner his last fight against Giovanni Cabrera. He was chasing him around all night. Fight was kind of sloppy, kind of ugly. Romero can be ugly at times, but he's a puncher, and he plants his feet and he throws. So I think these two guys, when they meet, it's going to be all action throughout. And really, I mean, both guys are going to be testing each other's chins. Isaac Cruz comes forward. He bangs with both hands, Mexican style. He's right in front of you. Romero, he's dynamic. If I'm going to say anything positive, he's a very dynamic guy. He's got great punching skills. He's got a great dynamic mouthpiece as well in terms of what he does for leading up to fights. So he's leading the charge in terms of the trash talk with this fight. But I think when it comes down to them throwing, I think it's going to be an excellent back and forth kind of contest with a very interesting clash of styles.
So it's the potential to be fight of the night on that card on March 30th.
This could steal the show on a lot of cards. It's that kind of fight.
So I won't ask you to predict who's going to win, but I'll say who's the favorite right now, just from early on when you first heard about this matchup.
You know, a lot of people are picking Cruz. Yeah, I still think Romero is the favorite. He's a bigger guy and he can punch a little bit. But I'll tell you where the wild card here is, as far as this fight is concerned. Cruz is a guy who presses. And I don't know if Romero's boxing skills is enough to offset that. So there's going to be moments where they're going to have to trade because if you're a good enough boxer, and Gervonta Davis is a very underrated boxer. If you notice, Gervonta Davis, when he fought Pitbull, started going back to his boxing because he couldn't stop the forward progress of Cruz, and he was able to beat him on a decision in a fight where he had to work, but he also got to show some of his underrated boxing skills. Cruz is going to continue to bring that pressure. He's consistent. He brings smart pressure. He brings pressure that feels like, feels like it's suffocating you. I don't know if Romero has the boxing ability to hold them off just boxing. So there's going to be moments where they're going to have to trade and whatnot. But Romero also is so awkward that he hits you with stuff you don't really see coming. He can throw some stuff. He can throw you off in that regard. But again, the consistent pressure against the awkward power, I don't know, man. I'm wondering if Cruz can take this kind of firepower. Because ultimately, Gervonta's a power puncher, but Gervonta was still an ex-130-pounder just like Cruz. Romero's big, man. This is where I'm very on the fence about this fight. I'll say that.
That's why I say no predictions, just who you got as the favorite right now.
I say personally, I'm going to favor the bigger guy in Romero. But again, I mean, if Cruz, does that mean if Cruz wins, I'm going to be shocked? No, absolutely. No. This is one of those fights where boxing, a lot of times, doesn't really give you those 50-50 fights, even when you're paying for them, even when it's supposedly a good fight. They just like to match. They like to match names against one another. Like we're going to be talking later about Haney and Garcia. It's not really a 50-50 fight, but it's two names against each other, so we're going to watch. This is actually a pretty 50-50 fight, maybe 55-45. It's a good fight, and it's hard to really predict the winner for sure.
Yeah, sportsbetting.ag has Romero as their early favorite. Who do you have as the favorite, Chris?
Yeah, I would think that he would be the favorite, but and it's a really tough fight to pick. But in terms of analysis-wise, to me, it looks like the kind of fight, first 6 rounds is going to favor Romero. The last 6 rounds is going to favor Cruz. I think Cruz with his pressure, if he can survive the early onslaught, those big punches like you said, Champ, those punches were able to keep Tank Davis from fighting the way that he normally does. The awkwardness, the power, the size, the physicality of Romero was enough to have Davis turn to a boxer. If Cruz, I don't think Cruz can turn into a boxer. I think he's gonna have to deal with some of that hellfire coming through. If he can survive that the first 6 rounds, I think his discipline, his pressure, his endurance in the second half of the fight, things that I think Romero actually lacks in terms of discipline and endurance late in a fight, I think Cruz has a chance to take over. Either way, it's as close to a 50-50 fight as you're gonna get for a world title.
Yeah, quickly, sportsbetting.ag says Cruz is the favorite. My bad, I made a mistake there.
I'll tell you what, the winner better fight Barroso before he gets too old, all right? I'm going to make sure nobody forgets about Barroso. They've been forgetting about this guy enough. He got screwed in that fight. He came back and knocked out O'Hara Davies, smoked him.
Yep.
Smoked O'Hara Davies.
One round,
in a fight where he was like a plus 1,800 underdog. So, The winner better fight Barroso, bro. Somebody better do something about this.
Don't hold your breath, but we should be screaming about it from the
Yeah,
ring.
we should start. That's why I mentioned his name. You're not going to forget. Not on my time. Not on my watch, guys. Barroso deserves a title shot.
All 41 years old, Ismael Barroso.
That's what I'm saying. He's already old enough. Give him the shot already.
Romero always said Romero said he hits harder than Tank Davis.
You got that old man strength, as they like to say. Cinco de Mayo weekend, a couple of Mexicans will be fighting on pay-per-view. It will be Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia. The first press conference took place today, or is going on now, in Beverly Hills. What a great place to have a press conference. Our BoxingScene.com reporters were there with some information. What do you have, fellas?
Hey everyone, this is Lance Pugmire and Manuk Alcopian from Boxing Scene. We're here live at the news conference for Canelo Alvarez and Jaime Munguia here at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Manuk, great atmosphere right now. We're seeing the mariachis. We're seeing a ton of reporters who are here. What's your thoughts on this fight?
You know, it's another amazing Cinco de Mayo showdown for Canelo Alvarez against Jaime Munguia. The last time Canelo fought a Mexican was Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Throughout the years, a lot's been made about whether he wants to fight a Mexican. Well, he is proving that he's willing to fight anyone in the sport. And Lance, I know you got a chance to catch up with some of the fighters, right?
Yeah, I was able to get a few minutes backstage with both Canelo Alvarez and Jaime Munguia. And when you talk about that 2017 fight against Chavez Jr., Canelo says, like, I wanted that to be a better fight than it was. And I know that this fight will be that event that my countrymen, that my fans want to see from me on May 4th. So he's very excited about what this can be. And the thing is, too, Manuk, I know there's been a lot of chatter about, should Canelo have been fighting David Benavidez on May 4th. Look, he says, I've proven it to you guys. I've proven it to other opponents. When you're in the ring with me, it's different. And no matter what name you want to throw out there, whether it's the Charlo brothers who talked a lot of smack about me last time, I took it to them. I can take it to any man, and I'm going to win on May 4th as well. What would you like to see from Canelo Alvarez on May 4th?
I would like to see him level up a little bit. I think the last few fights, he's probably been on cruise control a little bit. Might have a little bit to do with the level of opposition that he's been facing. Jaime Munguia is a young, hungry, and credible contender. 27 years old. He brings it every fight, crowd-pleasing style, and he did what Canelo Alvarez couldn't do, and that was stop John Ryder, which rightfully earned him this shot. I think we're going to see a side of Canelo Alvarez that we probably haven't seen for the last 3 years, ever since that Caleb Plant stoppage fight. He's been cruising to decisions ever since. This is the kind of fight I think that gets Canelo excited, and I think we'll see it May 4th.
Great. The other thing that came shining through out of the conversations with the guys is that there's a lot of mutual admiration that exists between these men. That mutual admiration stops on the night of May 4th. Hope everyone enjoys it. Hope everyone enjoys today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And it's been almost 7 years to the day since he last fought a Mexican, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. All right, Chris, I'm going to start with you here. What do you make of the comments of the fellas there in Beverly Hills and the fight overall?
I mean, I like this fight. It's not the fight that we all want. David Benavidez is the guy who's the most deserving for this shot. But in terms of the fight being made, I like this fight. And I think that Munguia is a guy who was tailor-made for the Canelo of old, but we're not dealing with the same Canelo anymore. We're looking at the 33-plus-year-old Canelo Alvarez, who never had a high output, but it seems to be getting even less lately. But a guy like Munguia, who's all output. He is an offensive machine. He comes forward. He's going to push the pace. He's a younger guy. He's got a deep gas tank. He walks through punches. That has the recipe to make this a very good fight, a very exciting fight, where Canelo really hasn't been putting on those kind of show-stopping performances as of late, probably because of the age, probably because of the opposition in front of him. But a guy like Munguia is going to push you to the limit. And I think Canelo, if he can go out there and dominate or get the stoppage, which, again, like I said, Munguia was the guy who was tailor-made for Canelo of old. But we'll see at this advanced stage how Canelo can deal with that youthful vitality of Munguia. And not for nothing, Munguia has been training his whole life for this moment. So he's going to have to level up as well. I do think this is actually going to be a very exciting fight for as long as it lasts. So it's not the guy that I want, but I don't mind this fight at all.
Munguia is, 6 years younger and about 4 inches taller? So that's something Canelo will have to deal with there, Paulie, as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Munguia's not exactly a guy who fights at reach. He looks to exchange. He looks to throw a bunch of combinations and power punches. He makes the fight fun. And I think from a Mexican fan perspective, this is a very big fight because it's both are Mexican from Mexico. Cinco de Mayo weekend, the whole mariachi thing at the press conference and all this other stuff. I mean, these guys are Mexican, right? So I think from that fan base, it's going to really light things up. Also, Canelo just lied through his teeth because he went from he's saying he's not going to fight a Mexican to fighting a Mexican from Mexico, no less, you know?
Is that what Mexican mean?
Yeah. I'm doubling down on the Mexican because Munguias are like a Mexican, you know?
Yeah. Not East LA, but from, from Tijuana, yeah.
So, he's not, none of that gringo stuff with Munguia. He's legit Mexican. So, but either way, stylistically, the fight's fun. Like the champ said, it's possible that the old Munguia, the old version of Canelo, this would have been a guy who's tailor-made for him. This version of Canelo doesn't like pace even less than the old version of Canelo did, the younger version of Canelo did. And Munguia does bring a pace. He does throw a bunch of combinations. He leaves a lot of openings in between, though. And Canelo's sense of timing is still very good. So I think, you can make a case for both guys and all this other stuff. Canelo trying to, as the two reporters, Pugmire and Akopian were talking about just now, Canelo talking about at the press conference, Charlo was talking this, and this is a big fight, and you're fighting me who's never going to fight before. I don't know, man. If I'm Munguia, I would have been like, buddy, you're fighting me because you didn't want to fight Benavidez. Don't make like you're a big shot. I think that was a missed opportunity for Munguia. They're all going to play it. They're all going to hug it out and play respectful. I'd love to see some bad blood in there, but whatever. Either way, I think the fight stylistically is going to be very fun.
Yeah, we still got about a month and a half before that fight pops off there. And by the way, Born in East LA with Cheech Marin is a pretty funny movie back in the 80s. I just have to mention it. Because ProBox, we got to mention the movies. Yeah.
East LA has some good fighters too.
Yeah, you do it. Okay, so very quickly here, we know Canelo Alvarez is the A side, as they say. What does Munguia have to do to win this fight? We're going to get some quick analysis here before we dive deeper into this further as we get closer to the fight.
This is one of those fights. It's going to be interesting early on. If Canelo can't get the respect of Munguia early with some of those counterpunches. Like the champ said, there's a lot of holes in Munguia's defense, well, basically his offense, because he's all offense. His defense is his offense. But he leaves a lot of openings to get hit, and he gets hit while throwing punches a lot because he throws long combinations, and he'll let go 5, 6, 7 punches, or he'll double up that left hand. There's going to be opportunities for Canelo to use those sharp counterpunches that he has, the right hand over the top, the left hook with the hooker, that he's going to be able to clip Munguia hard and clean early. If Munguia walks through those shots, Canelo's going to have a long night. But if he can get that respect early on, he can stem that tide a little bit or hurt Munguia early, I think it's going to be a walkover for Canelo. But I do see an opportunity here for the pace of Munguia to test Canelo in a way that we haven't seen in quite some time.
Yeah, probably final thoughts on Munguia, what he can do.
That's what you're looking for. You're looking for Munguia you're going to see if Canelo can stop the pace of Munguia with those punches in between. Munguia leaves you openings in between. We saw guys like Derevyanchenko would crack Munguia in between the combination, and all of a sudden Munguia would start backing up because he felt the power and he had to go and recover, and Derevyanchenko would go into full-out assault mode, and that fight was a great back-and-forth fight because of that. If Canelo is cracking Munguia suddenly is getting hesitant to throw those kind of combinations, then Canelo takes control of the fight. He can take control of the pace. He takes control of the fight. But if Canelo is landing some of these in-between shots, but Munguia is coming back with more combinations and more combinations, you could put Canelo in a position like he was with Bivol, where he's just kind of realizing, I can't keep up with the pace. Let me just, go defensive and go the distance.
Well, it's going to be a great fight there between Canelo Alvarez and Jaime Munguia. Don't forget, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we also want to shout out Teddy Atlas, had that knee surgery. We wish you a quick recovery because the New York Giants need you in the backfield. This is ProBox TV, your boxing channel.